I think this was over the last week after the Walter Scott issue, and he just posed the question, what is the Justice Department or the law enforcement agencies, what are they trying to do to us? And what I think he meant by that is, what are they trying to make us do? You know, what are they trying to make us do? Because for every cause, there's supposed to be an equal and opposite reaction. That's what they're expecting for us to do, is to react. But we need to be smart in the way that we solve this problem. We can't just be totally reactionary. We have to plan and organize, even if we have to organize groups of people who, once again, go back to the 60s and 70s. The Black Panther Party had it right on the nail. They were patrolling the police. What's wrong with that idea? We need to question our people and start looking back at people who had great ideas that our government tore down. Why did they tear them down? Because they were for our benefit. We got to come back and resurrect those ancestors and those people who looked out for our interests.
Okay, so I hear you talking about, aren't you all working on something in Jackson with the young man, the father who lost his son, police officer shot him in the back, and you were telling me this guy, this killer cop, was receiving some kind of award today, is that right? And real quick, tell us about the kind of work you're doing in Jackson around this particular issue with this particular father, and then I want to talk a little bit more with you about what you just talked about, organizing, being sophisticated, being proactive, and having some ideas that are clearly defined, and they're not, I know what you're saying, going out, being reactionary, and getting gunned down without a plan. I think that's what you were saying, but tell us about what you all are doing in Jackson.
Just to give a little bit of a background, there was a young man by the name of Senku Jaspor on November 6th of 2014. I think it was shortly after
I think Mike Brown.
The Mike Brown
After
incident,
that,
and then shortly after the Eric Duncan. All this happened within the same week. But a young man was shot in the back by a black officer. And for, I know at least for 3 months, the family was trying to get evidence and on the actual, on what actually happened. And there was a march that was done about a month ago where we went to the investigator's office and also the JPD on a Saturday, went right up there, and that very next Monday they released the video for the news. The first time they ever released the video, and they also at the same time simultaneously chose not to indict the officer. On the video, this young man, he's approached by the police, by a police cruiser, and the video shows, it shows the young man, he had a hammer, he swung it at the officer and threw it at the officer. That's plainly, you can plainly see that on the video, and you can go to YouTube and type it in, and there is a video for you to view where you can see this. But ultimately what happens after he throws the hammer, what the officer pulls his weapon, but instead of shooting him at that point, he actually he slams him down to the ground. And another officer, a white officer who was coming in, was about to run in and restrain him. But the black officer yells, he's got a knife, and he shoots the young man in the back while he's lying on the ground. And so he's, the young man's father has been trying to get the police reports and have been unsuccessful after many attempts. He still, even after they supposedly have concluded the investigation, he still does not have those copies in his hand, and he feels like the city of Jackson is involved in a cover-up on his son's case. Not to mention, this morning I was informed that the officer that shot the young man in the back, the black officer by the name of, is it Raymond Bond, or Officer Raymond Bond, they had a program this morning at a church, and where he's being recognized, and I don't know if he's being awarded, but he's being recognized, and that's all I've got. I haven't gotten any report back from after that ceremony, but he's being recognized.
So do you have any goals and objectives that you you and Lonnie, you were telling me earlier that it's just a small group of you. Do you have goals and objectives? Are you passing out flyers, leaflets? Are you educating?
We definitely been passing out flyers across the city, trying to get people to, one, we were trying to get people to sign petitions to try to get the officer indicted. Two, we had a program last Saturday, Black Martyrs Day, where we had a couple of speakers come speak on the top of police corruption. Not to mention, there is a GoFundMe account to help fund the father. He's not from Jackson, Tennessee. He's actually from Gary, Indiana, but he is currently living in Jackson, Tennessee. Not only that, we're still on a quest to try to help this brother gain the actual police reports from Jackson Police Department.
Okay, Lonnie?
Yeah, I just want to add to that. You know, I didn't know the guy actually, but you know, after seeing the video, it seems that, you know, like I said previously, you know, for some reason, to all nationality, even our own, you know, we just don't view the life. So that his life, you know, that could have been avoided, them murdering or killing this young adult. But as we see, you know, whether the officer felt, you know, he had to, because apparently during the reports he was stabbed or whatever, and
Who was stabbed?
the officer, the
Was
black
stabbed.
officer
Oh,
was stabbed. But like we said, you know, you seen clearly after, you know, the weapon was tossed in his direction, he had his weapon drawn. You know, he could have easily, even if he wanted to shoot him, he could have, there's other places you can shoot him.
You're saying he could have incapacitated?
Yeah, he could have incapacitated
The young man.
without taking his life. But
Okay.
it seems, you know, taking the life is I don't know. I used to say, you know, like the brother said, you know, maybe it's initiation or something that's going on around trying to, you know, eliminate us. And, you know, as you know, no more than 7 days, you know, it's off our conscience and we on to something else, and we think nothing else about it. But it seems to me, if it was another nationality or ethnic group that this happened to, it seems that, you know, the people would care more, or something would be done, and it seems that, you know, more of us will come together. But if it's a black young man, and if he's demonized in the media or anything, he had a criminal background or whatever, it's justified. And so until we start valuing, and a part of that has to do with our identity crisis that we're going on right now, because our people, you know, a lot of us, you call them black. Oh, I'm not black. I'm Puerto Rican, or I'm anything under the sun, but don't let me be black. You know, don't say I was a descendant of an African or something. You know, as long as you don't say that, you know, we cool. But and it's,
I'm part lion and part zebra.
right.
Anything but what you ought to be.
Any other ethnic group, we cannot find a common ground.
Yes.
We don't have anybody defending us. You know, we don't. We need that security, and as we've seen since we've been in this country, we have not had that. And until we take that serious, man, we're gonna be the sheep that's out there being slaughtered every day. You know, and another point I want to say, you know, a plan. You know, we said. I mentioned the president, you know, trying to hold him and administration and be accountable and at least acknowledge this. But we also have to go to our leaders, our religious leaders, you know, because even in the story of Christ, the real Mashiach, Messiah, you know, he went for his poor people, his poor brothers and sisters, and he fought against the religious leader of that time that was oppressing the people with the knowledge and the resources. We today I was thinking, you know, in Memphis, Tennessee, we can choose the 12 largest congregations around here. and each Sunday, if we can ask 10% of what you get each Sunday and add those 12 churches and use that money specifically for that community or a specific district for, school system or something to provide a job or something, that right there is a solution. Is our leaders willing to sacrifice that money and that time and for our people? Or are you just there to get a check and look religious and look highly upon? Are you really trying to come up with a solution for
And you're absolutely right. Whatever you are going to do, it takes money.
It takes money.
At some point in time, we should sit down and list these ideas
And be serious.
be serious, dedicated, committed, and disciplined, and see if they can be implemented. Omar, here today, as always, Jeffrey, you talked about the origin and the history of the police. And we had that show right here. Recall, Omar? We had that show right here about the origin of the police in the early 1700s. And Omar, we've talked about the sadness of the situation, the mentality of people of African descent right here today. And you've always said the problem is mental, the mentality. And Khalud has described, Jeffrey has described, Lana has described that Lonnie just said, even among us, our people, it doesn't appear that it is so bad that people are carrying around signs saying Black Lives Matter too. So what is it going to take to deal with this mental capacity in terms of everything that we're talking about? And while you're at it, talk about the difference. Why is it different in Japan? And what was the other country you mentioned?
The United Kingdom.
The United Kingdom. 3 murders, 11. What's the difference there than here? And talk about the 2 different mentalities. And we've got, it's 252.
Let's look at the 2 nations. In Japan, in order to get, first of all, you cannot buy a handgun in Japan. They're not available to the public. You can only buy a rifle or a shotgun. But to buy that rifle or shotgun, you got to have a psychological evaluation, a background check, and then you have to have some training on how to use the gun. And then when you store that gun in your home, you also have to have a physical. But when you store that gun in your home, the gun has to be locked up in one part of the house, and the bullet is locked up in another part of the house. And every 3 years, you do it all over again. So it discourages people from even wanting to own a gun. The police, when they leave work, the gun is left at work. It does not belong to them to take home. It's part of their police equipment, and it stays in the police lockup. They get it when they come to work, and they leave it off when they clock out. In the United Kingdom, it's similar to that. An officer does not have the authority to use lethal force, deadly force, unless he gets the authority to use it for that particular instance. If he don't get the authority, he can't pull his gun out and shoot anybody. If you look at videos of them subduing people that are mentally challenged, they use a taser gun. And I saw one video where the man had 2 butcher knives, and they surrounded him and they tased him. They never pulled the gun out to try to shoot him, because they didn't have the authority to do it. And this man was in front of Buckingham Palace with a lot of tourists out there. Our policing has to change, but white people have a love affair with drugs and guns. This is the most drugged out country on earth. And this country has more guns than some whole 2 or 3 nations put together. This country. I was reading a narrative earlier this morning. In America, some 70 million people in America have something on their criminal record, which means 1 out of every 3, just about, cannot get a regular job because of some criminal activity they've had, because we are also the most criminalized nation on earth. And now they're trying to change the policy where a certain crime won't count when you pull a person's criminal record. But this is the country we live in. As if they're still afraid the British might come back in here and start another revolution and take the country back over again. That madness needs to end. And this thing about gun rights, that was because we didn't have a standing army. Now we got armies everywhere, not just in America, but all over the earth. 130 different countries got our army on their soil.
Yes.
So we don't need guns in our household. Not like that. Especially pistols.
Right.
They should